thank you for coming here at such a short notice. Um, I thought it's incumbent upon me to make a statement, um, given what I said before, and given the interest that this case before the CCJ evoked in Guyana. So I wish to, because a lot of people, particularly in the base of the People's Progressive Party and those who wish us well, did not either read or are not familiar with the press release that I issued on Sunday last. And I gather this because many of them continue to call me throughout in the past few days, and up to a few minutes ago, they kept calling about what role I will play in the future of the PPP. So I just want to read once again what I said on Sunday last about my role in the People's Progressive Party, and then I will take it from there. In the statement that I made, I said, it is public knowledge that on Tuesday, the 26th of June, 2018, the Caribbean Court of Justice is scheduled to deliver its ruling in the constitutional case of Attorney General of Guyana versus Cedric Richardson. Multitudes of supporters of the PPPC and even across the political divide have made contact with me. Many concerns were raised, including the public statements of those in government in respect of a particular outcome. As a result, I moved to publicly assure that whatever the ruling is, and now that we have the ruling, I am and I will remain the General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party. In that capacity that I've always maintained, I will continue to spearhead the party's struggle for a better life for all Guyanese, especially the working people, the poor, and the underprivileged, for racial and national unity, and for victory at the polls at the next local government, regional, and national elections. Unlike the 2011-2015 period, where I played no formal part in the PPP administration, I intend to be a formal part of the next PPP government as we resume the implementation of plans to build a better Guyana of which all our people can feel proud. Ours is a party not built on personalities but on policies, all designed to create a better life for our people and forge racial, ethnic, and class unity. I remain committed to these policies and causes and will continue to struggle with the party to achieve them. This is what I said before the ruling on Sunday. And so today, I maintain that this is exactly what I will do. Now, I noticed that this press release got various spins in the media. For example, the Chronicle says, using this press release, the headline was, Jagdeo wants to remain PPP boss. Now, I am the General Secretary of the party. I will remain the General Secretary in spite of the CCJ ruling. The ruling has nothing to do with the election of the General Secretary. The General Secretary is elected by the Congress of the People's Progressive Party. So it has nothing to do with want to remain the PPP boss in spite of the CCJ ruling. The CCJ ruling has absolutely nothing to do with that. So let me come back to, I've been asked this question hundreds of times by the media. Are you going to be the PPP presidential candidate over the past several years? And I've always maintained that at the appropriate time, the People's Progressive Party will select its presidential candidate. I repeat that again today, that at the appropriate time, the PPP will elect a presidential candidate or select a presidential candidate. This will be done by the People's Progressive Party. I've noticed now suddenly we have a lot of goodwill from the APNU supporters for the PPP. They want to be part of the selection process. Well, and they know who would be our best candidates. And they want our best candidates to fight against them because of this goodwill that they have for PPP. Notice I'm being sarcastic. I'm being sarcastic. So you see it on Facebook all over the place, you know, who will be good by the PPP haters. Who will be the best candidate for the PPP? Well, we know they would like to see the weakest ones. That's what they would like to see, the weakest candidates, so they believe that they can trump that candidate in the elections. So I've always maintained there was a lot of speculation in 2011. If you go back and look at the newspapers, you would see there's speculation. Will Jagdeo leave? Will he stay on in office? And I made it clear that I would always comply with the laws of Guyana. And so the law at that time was that you had to leave after 2 terms. And I complied with that because I believe in the adhering to the laws of Guyana. In spite of the widespread speculation that I will attempt to stay on. And we've now had a ruling from the CCJ that has interpreted that law, and they've interpreted it in a particular way, and it remains our law. And so, as someone who has always complied with the law and an advocate for that, then this is the same position applies today. So a lot of speculation took place in the past. Now I have made it clear that in spite of wherever I've gone, particularly in our base, many people believe that I should be the presidential candidate, and that that this decision hopefully would have allowed that. And I've always maintained, even when I go to those meetings and they say it throughout the base, I've said, we have not made a decision on the presidential candidate as yet. And so I want the PPP supporters, they know of this, to understand that I will be there, integral part of the struggle as General Secretary. That's one of the reasons I contested the post as General Secretary and became the General Secretary of the party, because I want to be part of the transformation of the party, and I want to have a say in the policies that we pursue in the next government. And I've defined that role on numerous occasions at what I need to do as General Secretary to keep our party vibrant, alive, and kicking for many, many years into the future. A party that brings in more young people. Just last week at a press conference, I was asked about my role as General Secretary, and I said we have to create more space for young people in the party. I don't have a problem with older comrades. A lot of the older comrades still play a valuable, useful role, There is nothing about moving people out of the party. There is room for young and old, but people sometimes have to shift them a bit, and that's a lesson that you see with this government. They don't intend to shift them at all for young people. In fact, they misled them. We've always done that in my government. Always a significant part of the government was made up of young people. And I want to see the same thing happen in the party. Secondly, I spoke about the need to get more women to join the party because a significant part of our base supporters are women, but they don't enter the party formally. And that should change so more women as members of the party, and I made it clear. I'm going to work day and night to ensure that the party looks like Guyana. I've said publicly that to do that, we have to go out aggressively in the Afro-Guyanese communities and speak to them about our programs. And as General Secretary, I'll continue to do that and to assure them as General Secretary that our party, contrary to all the stereotypes they heard about us, is a party that believes in fairness. So that will continue because I will be the General Secretary of the party. That will continue. And then, as I said before, I intend to have a place, be formally a part of the next government. Because I saw, you can say things from the outside. In the period 2011 to 2015, I had concerns, but I was not part of a formal government. I want to ensure that the policies that we're talking about now, the PPP, that they get implemented. And I believe I would have a strong voice in a formal way to ensure that that happens, that we pursue plans for the future of Guyana. I had already said to you up to a few weeks ago when you asked me about the presidential candidate, I said, I have no desire to be part of any protocol type of arrangement, any things that I consider not value enhancing. And half of the job of presidential candidate is about that. And I had, just a few weeks ago, just here, said I had no desire to be part of that. So, whilst many in the PPP base will be disappointed, particularly those who've been pushing me, saying you have to do it, etc., I want to assure them, as I did long before the decision came out, this particular outcome, and frankly speaking, given what the government has been saying, I expected this outcome, given what the government has been saying. And so I made it clear many times to you that we'll never put the PPP's, all the PPP's eggs in one basket. I said that over and over again in just the Jagdeo basket or a third term basket. I've said that over and over again. So today, I hope that people would, in our base, that they might be disappointed, but we have an election to win, and I will work even harder now to ensure that we do so. Now, I notice the APNU side and the AFC, they've been like really, this is their victory. This is even bigger than the winning the elections for them. I saw a statement from the AFC. Now, this is an AFC that at its meeting last week publicly declared that it wrote the president 3 months ago and can't get a reply from the government as yet. And they're in partnership with the government. Imagine they can't get the president to reply to their letter that they wrote him 3 months ago. They can't even get a hearing there and a voice. And so they spoke about, if you look at it there, that how Jagdeo's legacy in Guyana is one of division and depression. During his tenure as president, Guyana collapsed into a narco economy and became a pariah state, criminal gangs, etc. Thousands left Guyana in droves. And under this government, it's very descriptive. But 90% of it is about Jagdeo. For a man who they thought would have been a weak candidate, they're paying an inordinate amount of attention to me. For a man who is supposed to be the weakest candidate, because my baggage alone, they said, would have sunk the PPP. So they should have been happy if it had been the other way, because my baggage would have sunk the PPP. And and then they said, the Guyana's economy is being restructured on the basis of sound economic policy, and revitalization of the major sectors is underway. This is the AFC, revitalization of the major sectors. Sugar collapsing, bauxite collapsing, the forestry sector collapsing. This is their thing. And then they said somewhere that we would have lost again had I run that. Somewhere about that. But that's the AFC for you. That's the AFC for you. So we're happy about it. Yesterday I said to Nagamotu, you're not getting rid of me if I'm politics in Guyana. That my job will not end. But my job now is to ensure that this coalition government, with all of its negative policies, harming people, that they get replaced by a government that cares for all of Guyana and that it has a vision, etc. So I'm not going to pay too much attention to the enthusiasm of this a spent force, the AFC, spent force that can't even get in its coalition, get their voices heard, and so distant from reality. Now, let me go through a couple of other things since I have you here, and I'll come back to my press conference on Thursday. But I couldn't help but look at Felix. Imagine Felix saying today, his explanation for 25,000 people missing in Guyana, the Haitians and the Cubans, he said that there are leakages because our borders are porous. Imagine in a space of like 4 years, you have 25,000 people moving through our borders on notice, undetected, and he's claiming unsupported. And the government didn't know about this. 25,000 people. This is what Felix's explanation is, that we have leakages through our border. Does this not really call for the government to resign, or Felix to resign, or Ramjatan? If you have 25,000 people come into your country in about 3 years and then go through your borders undetected, you pose a risk to Suriname, to French Guyana, to Brazil, because you have allowed 25,000 people to illegally go through your borders into another man's country, another person's country. Is this not cause for Ramjatan and Felix both to resign? But I suspect they did not go through without help from gangs. Because you can't have 25,000 people without it being organized. This is what we are saying, that there is a trafficking gang here, or gangs here, and they operate with the complicity of the government. and that ministry. And it's all done for money. It's not about Haitian people. I noticed there are several articles saying, oh, can't Haitians come here? And the Haitians come here. The Haitians can come here. This is a free country, and Haitian are people, Caribbean people. They should be allowed to come here, but legally, stay illegally if they want. Not to facilitate this sort of people smuggling. And so they're switching it to the racism argument. The PPP doesn't want Haitians because Haitians are black. This has nothing to do with that. It is the large numbers. And if we didn't bring this to the attention of the public, 25,000 people in 3 years passing through our borders undetected by our government into other countries, nobody would have known. It wouldn't have been an issue. So this raises a lot of concerns. Look at the venality in this government, the corruption, the special prosecutors. But these are not really on special prosecutors who are unconnected. A lot of the special prosecutors were working in Harmon's chambers before, or out of working with Basil Williams. So they handpicked a few special prosecutors. It didn't go through a competitive process. Not the best of our lawyers in the country, I would think. And then proceed to pay them $2 million retainer fee per case and $20,000 for every hour spent on the case. Not hours spent in the courts, but spent on the case. So I will take you a wager that none of these special prosecutors have declared $2 million of income in a year to the tax authorities. But on one case now, they'll get more than that. I'll take you a wager, public wager, if you can get the records. That is why we had argued when Granger had said that they had they needed to increase the salary of the ministers because they were making a large sum of money in the private sector. We said, well, show us your tax record. But we know a lot of them were not working. Keith Scott and many of the others were not working. Your phone fell down there. You got it right there? So this is unbelievable. It's totally corrupt. And listen, and then the bond. So this man got $265 million to rent a bond that he paid $25 million. He bought it for $25 million. He got in less than 2 years, $265 million in rental. And guess what the government said? They gave notice to quit twice. They're the clients. They don't need to notice to quit. They just have to walk away. Imagine they're giving themselves notice to quit twice, and you are the client. You are renting the bond. You walk out the bond. You don't have to give yourself notice to quit. Isn't it stupid? And that's the explanation that the minister gave. But I suspect that this is the gravy train for a lot of people. Gravy train for a lot of people. And then I've had recently, and I'll come back to this, I just want to give you a little snippet so you can start doing your research. Come back to this later in the week. But I've had a copy of the private placement memorandum for the bond, the 30 billion bond. And I was shocked. I was shocked. So, a lot of things we heard, we are told, and you recall that I was saying, is it a bond? Is it a loan? Is there going to be a guarantee? Are we pledging the assets of NISIL because the government did not give any explanation? We asked, what will the money be spent on? No explanation. We heard it is for Gaisuco. The money will be for Gaisuco. So, in the details of the offering, it says use of proceeds. to fund long-term projects and capital expenditure. Nothing about Gaisuko. So we thought in the public domain all along, they're raising $30 billion to spend back on Gaisuko and the remaining 3 estates. And that's the purpose of raising the funds. Now we're hearing, we saw in this memorandum, that this is to fund long-term. You're late. You're late. So he was calling me for a comment earlier, so he should have come a bit early to the press conference.
Can you tell me what he said? Thank you.
You sat up there?
Not quite.
Oh, all right. I'll let me give him a minute. Because he'd want me to give another comment outside. Nobody. You heard what the man said? Nobody watches your news. Sure. So let me get back to what I was saying. This is a serious matter here. So that's line number 1. So now we hear that this $30 billion that they're to long-term projects. We don't know what the projects are as yet. But you would recall that this bond is only for 5 years. So they are borrowing in short to medium term for long-term projects. So you tend to match your borrowing with the life of the project. So normally we would borrow on concessional terms for long-term projects. Say the airport, a road, it will be 20 years repayment, 30 years repayment at 1% and 2% interest. Those are long-term projects. So that you don't have big balloon payments or payments popping up like on the coupons here. So in 5 years, at a 4.75%, which is 355 basis points above our treasury bill rate, the government of Guyana will have to pay back here from the proceeds of NISIL nearly $40 million US dollars. Nearly $40 million US dollars in about 5 years, just to service $30 billion. So that is a huge, you could build an entire Marriott with this money. And you recall the money that we were trying to borrow against Marriott. The only collateral was the project itself, not a state guarantee, not guaranteed by NISIL, but the project itself. If the project fails, the bank takes the project. In this case, the loan is guaranteed by the proceed by NISIL. NISIL will repay the loan, and it has a state guarantee. So that is it. The borrowing cost is high, higher than treasury bills by significantly. Imagine you can borrow, the government can borrow now on T-bills at 1%, just over 1%, and it went to borrow at 4.75%. Then we see that it is also, bond will be free and clear of 40% corporate tax given the government of Guyana guarantee. So it's a tax-free bond to the banks too. This is tax-free. We go on, we now see here what are all the assets of NISIL. Now you'd recall last week the Kaichor News, or the week before, Kaichor News said to me that they heard that the head of the Mr. Ramroop owns the Marriott Hotel. Well, you see the Marriott Hotel here 100%. But look at NISIL, 100% of Gaisuko too. 100% of Gaisuko that NISIL now owns. And I saw Guyana stock feeds, the percentage there listed, the government shares in stock feed, down to 7%. You'd recall it was diluted to 7%. We went to court, we won the case, and the court gave us a 35, it went back to 35% of stock feeds. It seems as though that in the 3 years that the coalition government has been in place, they worked out a private deal with Mr. Badal, who is a financier of the AFC, to reduce back the shares to 7%. Another private deal here, because the court case, when the PPP left office, we had 35% of the Ghana Stock Feeds Limited. Now it's gone down to 7% again. So that's another question. Then it says here that the corporate board of governance, the board of directors for NISIL, has an opposition representative on it. This is in their private placement. Has an opposition representative on it. But we look at the people who are there. It's Dr. Morris Odell, Joseph Harmon, Winston Jordan, Mr. Verwey, and Calvin London. No, this is a lie. We don't have a member there, but it's in the placement memorandum. It says it is envisaged that NISIL will manage the sale of roughly 30 billion in assets, inclusive of 4,700 acres of land for Gaisuko. So they plan to sell 4,700 acres of land in the open market, and that the proceeds will repay the debt. So they using the money for long-term projects, not Gaisuko related projects, but the sale of land for Gaisuko will help to repay the loan. So, but the money is not going to be used for Gaisuko. There are several other things here that we can deal with. Remember, they said they're still looking at whether they would privatize, etc. They said in this memorandum that they've already been soliciting offers from private individuals and entities for the sugar estates. That's in the memorandum, although they said they will not move forward until you have the Pricewaterhouse valuation. In this memorandum, they spoke about soliciting bids already. In 2018, in the financial projections, they have for land sales and divestment income, $14 billion. In 2019, $22 billion. So we will come back to this in greater detail. This is a con job. And I want to know how much fees they're paying to Republic Bank and the others to arrange this. They're drying up. This was supposed to be money coming from abroad, a foreign currency facility. They issued it in the local market, dried up the liquidity, but we can dry up liquidity differently by the issuance of treasury bill at the price that is the interest rate at 1/3 of what it is that they're borrowing at. So this is going to be a huge scandal. So now that we have this here, and maybe I'll make it available because it was sent anonymously to me. And so I can send it out back to you. But we have whistleblowers legislation, etc. Soon you'll hear that this is state secret. Well, this is supposed to be in the public domain. We have a right to know. So I just want to end by saying that the National Grade 6 assessment, I want to wish the kids well, all those who are waiting for results. Thank you. I'm available.
Mr. Jagdeo had no doubt on Capital News. I just want
This is the first time you've come?
No.
For a while?
Well,
For a while, yeah. Okay.
when you were going out into the various communities,
Yeah.
and you were talking with your supporters and so on, and they were, pushing you
Yeah.
or they were pushing you along the presidential candidate line. You said that you were telling them about the challenge that is ongoing? The
No,
focus?
no.
You-
I said to them, we have not made a decision on that as the party. The same thing I said to you at the press conference. That's exactly what I said. We have not made a decision on it. We didn't explore court case or anything of that nature.
But then you need to say that this action here, that it was expected, the outcome of the court case. You said.
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah.
expected.
For me personally,
Personally,
personally, yeah, yeah.
expected. All right, the question now, during all of this, is the party grooming or preparing someone within the realm of the party?
The party has several good people, and one of them will emerge as the presidential candidate, and I will support that person and work very hard to make sure that the PPP gets back in office and that person becomes the president. And as General Secretary, hold the government accountable to the promises we make to people too.
How long from now will supporters know who that was?
The party will decide when it's the best time to select their candidate.
But have you got somebody in mind?
I like a few people,
And any names?
and I like them because they're hardworking, they have management skills, and they're courageous. Those are some of the things that will really influence me when we make the decision. Not what Nagamutu says, the roundabout man and stuff. Not Nagamutu or Harman or the Facebook horde that trolls us all the time. They're not going to determine that. It is the the leadership of the People's Progressive Party. I'll have a say as one of the members of the Central Committee. And I'm telling you publicly 3 things that I would give a premium, 3 characteristic traits that I will give a premium to in my own assessment of the candidates. So, okay. So, if you expected me to say who the person is and when, the party will decide that. As I've always said, when at the time, the party will decide the candidate.
Is there a woman among those that you like?
That would make it too specific. I don't discriminate between women and men. I believe everybody. I just said to you that we need more women in the party. We need more women in the party. And if we have a good female candidate, why not?
Do you see one?
Huh?
Do you see one?
I see one. I see many, many women in the party.
Mrs.
Yes, I don't see one. You're trying to get me into specifics, and I'm not going there at this time. Yeah. You need specifics, and it will come in good time. It will come in good time.
We don't like these specific things. No, sometimes you can't deal with it. Anyway.
All right.
Back to you, and this is where I want specifics again. You said you see yourself having a formal role.
Yeah. Yes.
I want you to tell us about this formal role. Does this formal role mean that you, Bharrat Jagdeo, is going to be the influencing factor of selecting, of handpicking a presidential candidate, and will you, Bharrat Jagdeo, be the person behind that presidential candidate's decisions to this country?
Well, first of all, it's a formal role in government, not about selection. I do have a formal role as General Secretary. I have to lead the process that would end up with the selection of a candidate. So as General Secretary, that's my responsibility. And so that's one. Secondly, in the government, you recall that in 2011 to 2015, I was accused of being the man behind the scenes. And I notice even now, they said, in today's thing, they said I was defeated twice at elections. I was never defeated at elections as a presidential candidate. I ran twice, 2001 and 2006. Never defeated. So they have it wrong. I think it's the AFC again. But let me say clearly now, and even now, anything that happened in that period, people ask me about it. And I defend what happened in that period because it's part of our PPP government and our legacy. And we can't only say, I can't, as General Secretary of our party, I can't say, oh, I wasn't part of that government, so I must not defend its policies and maybe even criticize where we went wrong. But it's all ours. It's part of our PPP history in government. But outside of defending it, and which I often do, the decisions made in that period, I had absolutely no role in making those and being part of the government. I was never formally part of the government. I mentioned to you there are the first year I had 2 or 3 meetings to help to move the capital program along in 2012, which I did because I was worried that the rate of implementation would drop, and I did so, meeting people, etc., because I do have some expertise. I came out of state planning. I worked my way up through that as junior minister, I was responsible for that, the capital program, the PSIP, etc. And so I did that, and at budget times, I will participate in the formal discussions on policy, what budget policy we will pursue. So in the period, that is the role that I played. Budget time, I will come back wherever I am and share my views about what types of policies we must put in place, what some of the initiatives. And I did that, but I had no formal role. Now, when we contested in 2015, that changed. I made it clear because a lot of our supporters were saying, you abandoned us after 2011. And so you recall that we said that if the PPP wins the election in 2015, that I will head an economic commission. Yeah, we said that, go back and check it carefully to see that the economy goes in, continues to grow, etc. So that in itself, even 2015, I was saying, had we gotten back into office, I would have started playing a formal role. So my role, I don't have to be, I'm hoping we'd select a candidate that will embrace our program. And our program is quite clear about enhancing welfare for people. We are pro-poor, pro-working class party. We believe in creating incentives for people, the business community, to do better. So I don't have to be second-guessing every decision of who is there. But I think it would be a comfort to whoever is there that I will be working to ensure that that person's government is successful. That should.
You feel like an advisor to the president?
That's too early to define what the role will be, but there will be a formal role this time around. I will have a say because I think I have enough policy experience to share that with whoever who becomes the president.
Mr. Johnson,
That's too early, but if you're approached by the
those
In your
things.
formal,
Listen,
no?
I want something where I can work day and night for 3 days, and then have 4 days for myself, maybe. I'm getting to that stage in my life where I want time for myself.
Not ministerial roles.
No. Where I want time for myself, because I've from 13 years old, I've been part of a party. Then for 20 odd years, they're part of a cabinet. Now I'm leader of the opposition, and I do want time for myself to walk around Guyana, to do things so that people don't have to ask me about like what is APNU doing, what they're stealing today, and all that sort of stuff, everything. I know, so that is the kind of thing I want to define any role now will be premature, like specifically. But one thing I'm sure about that I'm sharing the policy experience that I've gathered from 20 odd years in a field with whoever becomes the candidate. I want that the PPP government to be successful, that will win the next election. That government must be successful. And success for me will be defined in ways how we treat the minibus drivers and the vendors and the bauxite workers and those people who can't sell their logs now, the small loggers, and the sugar workers, and how the rice farmers, that when you can take back their taxes down to a level where they can start making a living. Policies that don't harass poor people, that don't harass people. I want to be part of that. That's how I define success. And policies that will be even-handed, where all of our people, regardless of their race or religion or anything else, can benefit. I want to see our country prosper and the private sector grow, and I want more Guyanese to be part of that growth. Not all the oil wealth and everything end up going back into the hands of foreigners. Look, we have to borrow now $35 million from the World Bank to get advice on the oil and gas sector. When tomorrow I said to you, give me one good draftsperson, and we can have a piece of legislation in the parliament on sovereign wealth fund, on local content, and a reformed bill, a reformed petroleum commission bill within 1 week, maybe 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, if you give me one drafter, I can do that, because we know what we want here. They're gonna take now 35 million US borrow to get experience, to get people to come and tell us, a horde of people from abroad to come and tell us what we must do. This is I don't want to see that happen in this country. I want Guyanese people to benefit from these emerging opportunities. And if we manage that well, all of us will do well. That's how I define success. So that is what I'll be pushing, and I'm sure whoever our candidate will be will do the same thing. And rights too, people's rights. We believe in privacy in the home. We believe in constitutional protection. We believe in a free media. We believe that in these things.
Mr. Jagdeo, if I can recall, when MP Irfan Ali got married, you introduced him as the country's next president. Does this mean that you support Mr. Ali?
Did I do that?
You did?
No, man. Yeah, so again, that's fake news.
No.
That's fake news. I never
I
did.
can't remember if it was you, but
Someone did,
whether you did
yeah.
or not, would you support Mr. Ali for president this time?
You're getting into specifics. You're getting into specifics. I said, I'm not dealing with specifics today. Kwame McCoy might want So I'm not getting into specifics, but I never said that.
No, someone said it.
But Ali is a bright young person too.
Mr. Jagdeo, you said that your supporters may be disappointed. Are you disappointed in today's ruling? If the CCJ ruling had gone otherwise, would you have been interested in a third term?
I said that before. That's what I was trying to say all along. That when I said, and I think it was carried extensively everywhere, that the presidential post brings a ton of things that at this stage in my life, I don't find that I want to be trapped by. So I know there was that great desire, people push me. But I have to think about me too. And I can make a contribution to Guyana, the PPP government, or party, all of our supporters. But somehow in there, I want to read all of those. I've accumulated, let me tell you something. Everywhere I traveled as president, and I traveled extensively, and after post-presidency, I went to nearly 40 countries in those 3 years or so. Every country I go to, I buy works of fiction from the writers. I have them all stacked, and I can't get time to read them up to now.
I can take a few off your hand.
No, I'm not lending them. I'm not lending. So don't ask me, nobody. I'm saving. I can't. I have stacks and stacks and stacks by countries, from writers from different things. I don't, but works of fiction. Not like hardcore political stuff, all of these things. I just want to read them. And so there are lots of things I can do. I would, as I said before, the next period up to the elections, you'll see me every single day work harder to get the PPP elected. But I don't want to be trapped.
Are there people in the PPP executive who don't want you in that position that you see yourself in? I see one of the PPP member of parliament saying that the internal worms are coming out at this point in time. Are there people in your party who don't want you there, and are you assuming that role against perhaps the oligarchs in the party?
Well, the thing is that I didn't assume the role. We don't have a dictatorship there. So at the Congress you go, you get votes. As you saw, my votes were the highest and way above.
200.
Yes, within about 200 from 700 is a pretty large margin. So that tells you about the support in the base of the party. Secondly, we have, and I emerge as the general secretary of the party with the majority of the vote, significant majority of the vote too. So I can't, as I said before, I can't, if I try to get everyone to like me, I would not have a principled position, because I'll try to be something to everyone. And I'd have to water down what I stand for. And I stand for some things, and I'm not watering down those. That this party has to continue to lead Guyana because its philosophy that it was born out of from the 50s, pro-people party. And that the best way of ensuring that that happens is to do the things I outlined earlier. I don't want to repeat them. Give young people an opportunity, etc. So if that doesn't find favor with a few people, I can't give up on that dream for the party and for Guyana. Even if they're from within, even if they are members, I will pursue it to the end. If people believe I must not change the composition of the party, a few of them believe I must not change the composition of the party, but I believe that a broad-based party is good for Guyana. I will fight against that. And so that is it. I'm not trying to be everything to everyone.
What do you mean change the composition of the party?
No, I mean just like bringing in more women or young people or Afro-Guyanese. That's what I mean. So like if somebody is opposed to that, then I will fight against it.
But Mr. Jagdeo, you said earlier that the party has talent and bright people. Why not give someone else a chance, your opposition leader, perhaps to be general secretary of the party?
Yes, but the thing is that this is it, and so they will get, that is precisely, young people are going to emerge. We did that when I was president. A whole slew of young people. Imagine in their 20s, in their 30s and 40s, they dominated my cabinet. Contrast that with this government. Since in the party now, maybe half of our leaders are in their 30s and 40s. You have maybe one or two in their 20s. And the same thing in the executive of the party. So the changes that we're talking about are taking place. And I believe you need somebody to push those changes. And so that is happening. It's good for the party. And these changes we're making now, going back, rebuilding the party from the bottom up. I've seen in the last year thousands of our activists with a new enthusiasm. They're creating more groups on the ground. They're getting more membership. Our party has grown. The house-to-house work that they're doing now on registration, unbelievable amount of energy and hard work. They are the people that are the heroes of our party. They do a lot of work. Sometimes we just focus on the leaders. I said the party is not Freedom House and a few leaders. The party resides in the regions and in the villages and the wards in the city. And imagine Region 9. We have nearly 2,000 members. We had a third of the delegates at the last Congress coming from the hinterland. That is phenomenal. I go to people who, the ATV don't work, and they walk miles and miles to go and do a political meeting in a village in the hinterland. Those are the committed people. I'm driving up the river in Region 1, going up one of the rivers to a community, and I see a mother and father paddling there 5 miles away from the meeting. We passed them with the boat. And in that boat, the mother and the father have red, and I see 2 little babies in red. They're peeping out over the side of the boat. And then I know that this party has a future, because those little ones already, they're bringing their children paddling 5 miles. They come to the meetings and they speak of the neglect now. That is what this party is about. That inspires me every single day to go about. Sometimes not these little things. I ignore them about who likes me and who doesn't like me and who wants to get a face in the newspapers.
So, Mr. Jagdeo, are you saying that?
Follow up on
sure.
something.
Yes.
I'm hearing a lot of eyes as you speak. What I want to know is the selection process, is it going to be a democratic process where it is chosen by the party members? The person is chosen by the party members, that is one.
Yeah.
Two, you said I expected this outcome, given what this government has been saying. I was supposed to ask you that earlier. How soon did you come to this realization to expect this outcome?
Well,
When the government started saying whatever it was that it was.
yes,
And my
okay.
third,
I have one.
I wanted to know if you feel that it's an indictment on the competency or strength of the leadership of the candidate that would be selected, for you to
All right,
overemphasize this leadership role that you would play.
I believe, starting with the end, that I have policy experience. I have some support in our base, that I must put that at the disposal of the party and the candidate. That is what I'm doing. Secondly, from the time we saw the debate in the public domain about these statements from the ministers, etc. Right, a few months ago. So this was, but long before that, my position was the same as it was, that the PPP will select its candidate at an appropriate time. So that did not change my position throughout. And what was the third one?
The democratic process.
Oh yeah, but it's always been that way, that it is the central committee that selects.
Final question for me,
Candidate.
Mr. Jagdeo. You said, you spoke of pushing changes in the party. I was wondering, are you the only person who's, as we determined, we're going to know, fit and proper to push these changes? We have other competent, I see.
No. I'm saying I'm the general secretary. I have to lead change too. That's a role as a leader. I'm not like Granger, where he is president and he's missing. So he's missing and aloof. If I take on a responsibility, I have to perform the job. And my job is to make the PPP as viable as it can be, and and as progressive and broad-based and electorally winning machinery. It has already won several elections. It's a strong party. I have to enhance that. That's my role as general secretary. So there are lots of people in there who are embracing the change. They love that change. You asked me about a couple of individuals, but that's why I said I can't waste a lot of time on a few individuals. I have the support of the leadership, the majority of the leadership of the party for these changes. And so that's necessary. I'm not Granger. I don't believe you should take a job and then just drive around in vehicles and cut ribbon and do arches. I'm not like that.
My final
Yeah.
comment.
Well, the Jeffrey Channel 2 headline news.
Yes. Okay. Finally. Yeah.
Now, you speak of the presidency now with a tinge of disdain. You speak of
Yeah.
it as
Well,
this.
Don't let me agree with the man that nobody watches your media, but all right, because you're editorializing. I've done that before the decision.
What I wanted to know is, at which point, because you had 2 years before you ran as president, then 2 consecutive 4-year periods. At which point in your life did you come to this conclusion, damn it, why am I president?
Right. It was not disdain. It was a dislike for certain things in the
When did it happen?
presidency.
When did that happen?
So let me give you a couple of examples. So accrediting ambassadors, for example, used to be a 2 hours affair. You go, you read a speech, the people line up, the ambassadors read a speech, which will take a long time. Then you go in, you retire, and you have a discussion. So I said to Foreign Affairs, let's make this into about 5-10 minutes. And they said, oh, you can't change that. It's been like that forever. And I said, does this happen anywhere in the developed world? And the answer was no. So I cut out the speeches, because the speeches are just canned speeches. Some people love to do that, a pre-prepared speech. Almost all the speech, I can remember them by my head. Mutual concern, mutual respect, the usual stuff. I cut out the speeches. Then I stand up there. The ambassador comes. He says, I'm presenting my credential here. I accept it. Say thank you. We take a picture. And then we go and have a private discussion. So, starting to make changes. There are several places I did that. Just anyhow, I don't want to mention that one. But I'm giving you when I became bored with the things that you had to do. I don't mind going for 3 hours and sitting and listening to people in Linden, in the market, talking about their issue. But I have grave problems going to some of these, and I stopped going to many of them, like the cocktail circuits and stuff like that. So at that time, I started developing a dislike, not disdain, dislike. And I still maintain that, because I believe we waste a lot of time in government on form, and not unnecessarily on issues that change people's lives. So I don't remember exactly when it started. I can't tell you exactly when it started, but over the course of being there, that I started. So I would say to Prime Minister Samuel Hines, why not accredit the ambassadors or do some of these things when I'm out the country?
Do you think that this ruling affects the presidency of Mr. Ramatar, and would you support in Mr. Ramatar, in as much as he expressed in this TV station here that nobody watches, he did express that he would be interested. Now just play with that he would be interested in.
Are you disparaging Ramatar? Are you saying Ramatar goes on a TV station?
What would you support? Is he one of the persons that you would support in his quest, in as much as he has publicly expressed the desire to be a president again?
Well, the party will make the decision. But let me say that, let me repeat again what I said. Management skills, courageous, and those are right.
Is there a place for Donald?
What do you mean? There's always a place for everyone. When I was out of government, did anyone ask me whether there's a place for me? I was a member of the executive of the party. I didn't have any role at that time. Was there, it meant the party threw me out?
He means in government.
2011. I left, I did not, when I left the government, I did not do a single interview, although I was asked by the media for three years nearly. I spoke twice, once at the NBS, and another time, I think the GMSA had a dinner. 2 public appearances, but did not do any interview with the local media. Now, I was reported on by things I did abroad, but never here, because I thought when you have to give people space. So nobody asked that, and it wasn't an issue then. Why should it be an issue now? Why should it be an issue now?
You're a strategist. And do you think that this ruling will affect negatively your standing in the party and your party nationally, in as much as there was a hue and cry for you to be allowed to run again? Do you think that this will affect you and the party?
Well, if you believe the APNU and the AFC, this is the best thing for the PPP, right? So, because I have baggage. No, I believe that people might be disappointed, but they know where I stand. I stand here firmly, resolutely, as General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party, working towards a PPP victory in 2020 or before.
Do you think it will affect? I'm asking, do you?
No, because they know I'm part of this process.
Mr. Jagdeo, final question from me. The country, we've never had a man of the cloth as president here in Guyana. Would you support Mr. Etchell for
A man of the cloth? Yeah. What about a woman? Right, somebody asked me, a woman, no man of the cloth. Somebody asked me if Kwame will be the presidential candidate. We can't decide at this time. I said to you, that decision will be made at the appropriate time.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Kwame,